When we think of colonialism, we often picture distant lands. But some of the most brutal colonial oppression happened close to home, in Ireland. For centuries, Ireland was subjected to relentless exploitation by Britain. The penal laws and land confiscations weren't just about control. They were designed to crush the Irish people, taking away their land, their culture, and their faith. Being Irish and Catholic became not just a disadvantage, but a crime. This wasn't only a matter of conquest. It was an economic strategy. By stripping the Irish of their land, Britain aimed to enrich itself, while ensuring that the Irish would remain impoverished and powerless. Through mass land theft and oppressive laws, Britain sought to break Ireland's spirit. Their goal was simple: keep Ireland weak and dependent, while profiting from its suffering. The impact of this remains felt in Ireland today. In this video, we'll explore how the penal laws and land confiscations reshaped Irish society. We'll examine the economic and cultural devastation caused by Britain's deliberate efforts to control Ireland. We'll uncover how Britain's policies weren't just oppressive, but intentionally designed to erase Irish identity. These actions left deep scars on the Irish people, scars that would take centuries to heal. By the end of this video, you'll see how Britain turned the Irish into second-class citizens in their own land. And you'll understand why these events continue to echo through Irish history. Let's dive into the story of how the penal laws and land theft systematically dismantled Irish society, one piece at a time, all in the name of British profit and control. The English presence in Ireland stretches back over 800 years, starting with the Norman invasion of 1169. But it was in the 16th century, under the Tudors, that England ramped up its efforts to fully conquer and control Ireland. For the English elites, Irish land was an opportunity. They wanted to expand their control, not just to gain more territory, but to secure wealth and resources. Ireland was seen as a prize, one they felt entitled to take. Religion also played a major role. England's Protestant rulers demonized the Catholic Irish, labeling them as rebellious and dangerous. This religious excuse made it easier to justify land theft and oppression. But beneath the religious justification, it was always about greed. The land was fertile, the resources rich, and England wanted it all. The English saw Ireland as ripe for exploitation, and they weren't going to wait. This greed set the stage for centuries of brutal land confiscations. The English crown began granting huge tracts of Irish land to Protestant settlers from England and Scotland, stripping Irish landowners of their homes. The Munster Plantation of 1586 was one of the earliest and most significant examples. Vast regions of southern Ireland were seized, and Irish families were forcibly removed to make way for English settlers. The most infamous land theft came with the Ulster Plantation of 1609, where even more fertile land in the North Ireland was taken. This event reshaped the demographic and economic balance of Ireland for centuries. These plantations were tools of control. By replacing Irish landowners with Protestant settlers loyal to the crown, Britain weakened Irish society. The native population was left impoverished, struggling to survive. This wasn't just about land, it was about power. The plantations were designed to destroy Irish culture and independence, making sure the people were too weak to ever resist English rule again. Britain's land theft in Ireland was more than just a strategy of control. It was an act of colonial greed. By taking Ireland's most fertile lands, England ensured that its people would be left poor and powerless. By the late 16th century, the English crown had devised a new method of control: plantations. Under this system, fertile Irish land was seized and redistributed to loyal Protestant settlers from England and Scotland. The Munster Plantation of 1586 was one of the first major efforts. Vast stretches of southern Ireland were confiscated from Irish landowners, and handed over to English settlers, who were expected to civilize the land. But the largest and most infamous land grab came with the Ulster Plantation in 1609. Tens of thousands of acres in the north were taken from Irish chieftains, displacing thousands of native Irish families. The plantations weren't just about land. They were a means to weaken Irish society. By displacing native landowners and replacing them with Protestant settlers, the English crown sought to break the economic power of the Irish. The plantations created a stark economic divide. Protestant settlers thrived on the fertile land, while the native Irish were pushed onto barren plots. The system was designed to entrench poverty among the Irish. The brutal phase of land theft reached its peak with the Cromwellian conquest in the mid-17th century. After Cromwell's bloody campaign, the largest confiscations in Irish history took place, driving Catholics west of the Shannon River. Over 90% of Ireland's land ended up in Protestant hands by 1703. Irish Catholics were left with only the worst, least fertile lands, with little hope of ever reclaiming their homes or their rights. For the Irish, this was more than just losing property. It was losing their way of life. The land, which had been central to their culture and survival for generations, was now controlled by foreign hands. The plantations laid the foundation for centuries of inequality and resentment. The native Irish were now tenants in their own homeland, forced to work for the very people who had taken everything from them. The plantation system, built on greed and exploitation, transformed Irish society forever. It created a permanent ruling class of Protestant landowners, while the dispossessed Irish struggled to survive on the margins of society. After the Williamite War of the late 17th century, the Protestant victory brought a new wave of oppression. The Penal Laws were introduced to ensure that the Irish Catholic majority remained disenfranchised and powerless. These laws were designed not just to suppress religion, but to dismantle the very fabric of Irish Catholic life. They made it illegal for Catholics to openly practice their faith or even educate their children in Catholicism. Catholic priests were hunted down, their churches closed, and their congregations forced into secrecy. The Penal Laws aimed to strip the Irish people of their spiritual leaders and destroy their connection to Catholicism. But the Penal Laws went beyond religious persecution. They targeted Catholic land ownership, preventing Irish Catholics from buying or leasing land on fair terms, which ensured that wealth remained in Protestant hands. Over time, these laws devastated the Irish economy. Catholic farmers were forced into small, unproductive plots of land, while Protestant landlords grew richer. The Penal Laws institutionalized poverty for the Irish majority. Catholics were also denied the right to vote, hold public office, or serve in Parliament. They were effectively cut off from any form of political power, leaving the Protestant ascendancy in complete control of Ireland's governance. The Penal Laws also sought to destroy Irish culture. Irish language schools were banned, and children were forbidden from learning their native tongue. This attack on education aimed to erase Irish identity itself. These laws forced many Irish to seek education abroad or in secret, but most were left without formal schooling. The Penal Laws weren't just about controlling land, they aimed to erase the Irish culture and language. For centuries, the Penal Laws institutionalized inequality in Ireland. They created a deeply divided society, with a small Protestant elite living in luxury, while the Irish Catholic majority struggled just to survive. The Penal Laws were not just about religion, they were about control. Britain used them to keep the Irish weak, poor, and dependent, ensuring that the benefits of Ireland's resources flowed only to Protestant hands. The Penal Laws and land confiscations were never just about religion. They were designed to maintain Britain's grip on Ireland, ensuring the Protestant minority had all the power while the Catholic majority remained poor and voiceless. Britain used these laws to keep the Irish population weak, their land seized, and their wealth stripped away. This system ensured that Ireland's resources flowed back to England, enriching the few at the expense of the many. Catholic landowners who had managed to survive Cromwell's campaign were gradually stripped of their property. The laws made it nearly impossible for Catholics to buy or lease land, creating a permanent Protestant ruling class. The Protestant ascendancy, a small elite backed by the British government, controlled Ireland's land, wealth, and political power. The vast majority of the population, the Irish Catholics, were reduced to second-class citizens. For Irish Catholics, this system was inescapable. They were forbidden from holding political office, voting, or even receiving a proper education. The penal laws were designed to trap them in poverty for generations. British officials knew that as long as the Irish remained poor, uneducated, and disconnected from political power, they could never challenge England's rule. The penal laws were the key to maintaining control over the island. The laws weren't just designed to oppress the Irish. They were meant to transform Ireland into an economic engine for Britain. By keeping the land and wealth in Protestant hands, England could extract Ireland's resources with little resistance. These oppressive policies created deep divisions in Irish society. The Protestant minority thrived, while the Irish Catholic majority was left starving, impoverished, and excluded from power. It was a system of exploitation and control. The effects of Britain's colonial strategy lasted for centuries. The system entrenched poverty in Ireland and left the Irish population broken, with millions eventually forced to emigrate due to famine, oppression, and economic hardship. Britain's exploitation of Ireland was systematic and deliberate. The penal laws and land confiscations weren't just about control, they were about ensuring that Ireland's wealth, land, and people were forever in the service of British power. The penal laws and mass land confiscations were part of a centuries-long campaign by Britain to dominate Ireland. These policies created a system of inequality and exploitation that would impact generations of Irish people. While these laws were eventually dismantled in the 19th century, the damage was already done. Millions of Irish were forced to emigrate, and those who remained struggled to survive in a land that was no longer their own. Britain's oppressive policies in Ireland were not just about military conquest. They were a deliberate attempt to erase Irish culture, strip away Irish land, and make the people second-class citizens in their own country. Despite Britain's best efforts, the Irish spirit of resistance endured. Over time, Irish voices grew louder, demanding justice, equality, and, eventually, freedom from British rule. The legacy of the penal laws and land confiscations is a dark chapter in the story of Ireland, but it also laid the foundation for the Irish people's fight for freedom and the eventual rise of Irish nationalism. This was more than a struggle for land or political power. It was a battle for identity, for culture, and for the right to exist as a free people. And in the end, the Irish would not be broken. Britain's colonial greed left scars on Ireland, but it also fueled the resilience and determination that eventually led to independence. The penal laws and land theft may have weakened the Irish, but they never destroyed their spirit. Today, we remember these dark times not just as a reminder of past oppression, but as a testament to the Irish will to resist and fight for their land, their faith, and their freedom. The story of the penal laws and land confiscations is a reminder of the importance of justice and equality. Though the Irish suffered greatly, their resilience laid the groundwork for a new Ireland, one that would rise from the ashes of oppression. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our next video, where we'll explore more of Ireland's incredible journey from colonial oppression to independence. Until then, Remember the strength of those who came before us.